be with us on this Tuesday morning. And we wake up to something that has not gotten a whole lot of attention nationally. And I'll get right to it. Of course, public education is going through a tremendous amount of pressure in every school district in this country when it comes to funding, when it comes to priorities, and when it comes to federal help. And, of course, teachers' unions across the country have been vilified. They're the problem. You know that, right? Not the case. People that go into the profession of teaching don't do it because they're going to have a big yacht, or they're going to have the hottest car, or they're going to live in the biggest home. The career climb that they have is rewarding in such a different way. It takes a special person to be a teacher. Number one, you have to be totally unselfish. And number two, you have to really have an innate ability, and it's got to be in your heart and your soul to care about other people. Now, that being said, there's not a parent in America that wants his or her child to have a teacher that's not motivated. And there's nothing worse in the industry that's facing right now when you have political groups across this country that think that teachers are the problem, that they get paid too much, that their pension's too high, that their time off is too good, that the requirements aren't good enough, and, oh, by the way, our kids aren't performing, so guess what? It's their problem. You know, teaching is so interesting in that it's not like going to the grocery store where you can pick out the best berries and take them home. Teaching is when the door opens, everybody's welcome. And there are political forces in this country that want to pick and choose. What we're seeing going on in Chicago is just it's a story that turns your stomach. At least it does mine. We're picking and choosing neighborhoods in some cities in this country, especially Chicago, because of funding and lack of resources, and nobody wants to pay for anything. But Seattle? What's happening in Seattle? 53,000 public school students were idled for the fifth day on Tuesday by a citywide teacher strike after a marathon round of weekend contract talks between the union and school district failed to produce a settlement. I don't know the full story, so I want to go right to the president of the Seattle Education Association, Jonathan Knapp. Mr. Knapp, good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.
It's great to be here, Ed. Thank you.
Lay it out for us. Why are your teachers on strike? What are the issues? What's happening? Where are we at this hour?
Well, it's pretty early here in Seattle, but at this hour, we've been working through the weekend. My team worked late into the night last night. We're doing all we can to get to a contract, but there's still some issues on the table that are unresolved, and we can talk a little bit about those issues if you'd like.
Absolutely. What are the issues? What brought your teachers to this point?
Well, I think just to take a moment and expand on the environment that you outlined coming into the show here. For the last years, we have been under attack, and I think it's taken us a while to cross the country in the profession in public education to realize that no white knight is going to ride to our rescue. It's really up to us to be the advocates for public education. And so this time, in going into the bargain, we really decided to look at our issues and sort of cut our issues in a way that we were pretty sure would resonate with the public. We really wanted to articulate a bargaining agenda for the common good. And so we chose some issues that we knew would resonate with parents and in the community, and and these aren't always necessary or mandatory subjects of bargaining, but they're things that we knew that our members would feel passionately about and that would resonate with parents. So that's a conscious strategy that we've used going into this year's bargaining. Okay, so there are wages at issue right now. I understand that there has not been a cost of living increase for these teachers in over 6 years. Is that correct? That's right. We've got a big funding problem in the state with public education, so have not had a state cost of living for 6 years. We haven't had an increase in health care allocation for 5 years, which means that we're getting pay cuts every year as health care goes up.
And what about the performance evaluations? Have they changed over the years?
So we worked really hard in Seattle to develop a new teacher evaluation system back in about 2009-10, and actually sort of set the model for the state. A couple years later, the state legislature adopted many elements of the system that we had bargained in Seattle. And, they've been through some bumps on that, but we're in a better place than in most places around the country. We do not evaluate teachers directly on student test scores. We have a way of looking at test scores, but it's not an actual evaluative criteria.
So what's going on in Seattle is very similar to what's taking place in other cities across the country. There's funding issues, there's wage issues, there's evaluation issues, and basically it comes down to fairness, doesn't it? It sounds like.
Right, fairness, I think, for educators, but also, fairness for kids. We really focused our agenda around kids. We put on the table. We learned in the last just year or so that there's a tremendous inequity in our district around recess time for elementary kids. Some kids have as much as 45 minutes a day at recess, and others have as little as 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so this is not a mandatory subject of bargaining, but it's one that's really important to our educators. They know how crucial it is that kids get, unstructured playtime. It's really a crucial part of their development, and that issue has resonated with parents.
Do you have the public with you?
We do. We've come out with an agenda to get a handle on this excessive testing that's going on, and in the last few years, I think the thinking about that in the public has really shifted quite a bit to understanding just how destructive excessive testing is to the public.
Let's talk about that for just a moment. Excessive testing. Give us an example.
Well, there's just, in addition to the state and federal mandates, there, of course, are a bunch of district mandates around standardized testing. Our educators here in Seattle were leading on that issue a couple of years ago. Many people heard about the MAP test boycott here in Seattle, and it's continued to be an issue. There's just so much learning time that is taken up in the course of a school year from students just to take standardized tests, and
they're not listening to the educators, are
right?
they?
And they're not useful to educators.
Yeah. How long are you willing to stay out? I
think our members are very resolved. We're feeling very powerful about this. We're feeling very connected to the parent community, and the points that we've made to the school district around testing, and actually there's another initiative that you should know about around equity and student discipline. Our district is under investigation by the Department of Justice for disproportionate discipline for African American boys, and we would like to have a voice in solving that problem. It's really crucial for educators to be centrally involved in tackling those challenges in schools.
Discipline's been an issue in the schools, obviously, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. And so you want the teachers to have more leeway on decision-making process?
It's just more voice and more ability to dive into the data on this challenge. We know that it's not always going to be the same solution in every single school, so we're looking for school-based solutions to how to cut down on disproportionate discipline.
All right. Jonathan Knapp, finally. Gentleman is the Seattle Education Association president. Mr. Knapp, the funding.
Right.
The state has not been sending enough money to the school districts to function the way they need to, and teachers are the ones that are taking the brunt of it?
Yeah. So we have a state Supreme Court that has actually ruled that the legislature is in contempt around education funding, and so it's been really difficult to get them to act on funding. We had a little bit of money that they rolled out this year, not nearly enough to lift the contempt order from the court, but an opportunity to bargain some money to really, attract and retain high-quality educators. We really feel like teacher pay is an equity issue in our schools. We have to attract and retain great educators for Seattle, the most expensive city to live in the state. If we're gonna have an opportunity to make headway with kids, and it's just not really forthcoming from the legislature. But we're in a little bit of a struggle right now with the district to try to get them to really support educators and give us the opportunity to make headway with kids.
We'll follow the story, Mr. Knapp. All the best to you. It's a story that we hear too familiar around the country.
Yep. There's great opportunities in it to make headway for public education.
Okay. Jonathan Knapp, good to have you with us. I appreciate your time here at Ed Schultz News and Commentary. I'm a big believer in public education. big believer that when the door is open, it should be equal for everybody. If you're going to cut funding, you're going to cut resources, you're going to get a worse product. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It is one of the great foundations of this country.